Okay, we got to talk about the Golden State Warriors because they have made a massive mistake over the last few years. Now, we are almost in August, ladies and gentlemen, and the Golden State Warriors have not made a single move yet in the offseason, which is very damning when you have a franchise that reside in a very competitive conference, so competitive that despite the fact that many of these teams are already better than the Warriors last year, some of the top teams in the Western Conference continue to add to the talent on their roster to make themselves even better, furthering the gap from the Warriors to some of the top contending teams. Also, this is a franchise that's trying to maximize the last year or two of Curry's prime because beyond this 2-year window, it's not even certain if Curry is going to be on the team anymore or even in the league because he could retire. But what's probably even more problematic is that this is a franchise that doesn't really have a true identity, a plan beyond this 2-year window of Curry's prime. No young player that they can solidify themselves, ride off to the sunset, cross their fingers and hope that they will be the next face of the franchise, despite the fact that the entire purpose of the plan that they decided to choose was so they could avoid this problem where we are today. And the biggest reason why all of this is occurring is because of the Johnathan Kuminga conundrum. For those who are unaware, Johnathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors just don't see eye to eye. And a huge reason for this is because of the inconsistent role, minutes, responsibility that Kuminga has received for the better part of the last 2 to 3 years. This has led into not only several different public disputes between Kuminga and head coach Steve Kerr, but now has leaked over so much so that we're now in contract negotiations. And despite the fact that Kuminga is no longer under contract, Kuminga is done with the 4 years of his rookie deal. And normally, like in 9 times out of 10 situations, players of Kuminga's status would receive a contract pretty quickly, an offer almost immediately that they are looking for. But here we are again in August. Matter of fact, even dating back last year, and Kuminga and the Warriors seem to not be on the same page with one another. Now, how exactly did we get here? And I'll be honest with you, it's pretty crazy to me that not too many people are openly critical of what's going on in Golden State, because I do believe what's happened for the better part of the last 6 years, really post the Kevin Durant era, has been a bunch of malpractice going on in Golden State. Because again, this is a team that's trying to maximize as many years of Curry's career that they have left. And I truly believe if they didn't win in 2022, we would have a completely different discussion. But how exactly did we get here? Just briefly, like I said before, post KD, the Warriors had a couple of years where it was certainly a mulligan, some years where they kind of punted off and received as many assets as possible. This included Andrew Wiggins, who at the time was viewed as a negative asset, but an asset nevertheless. Then you have a draft pick that came along with that, as well as tanking for another top draft pick and a couple of other late first and second round picks that turned out to actually be really quality players such as Moses Moody and Jordan Poole. However, the concept and the belief was very, very simple. The Warriors believed that they already had a core of Curry, Clay, and Dre, now with Wiggins, of a bunch of veterans that can give you immediate impact to win a championship. And instead of adding to the veteran talent pool that you already had on the roster to kind of help you out in the immediate runs, what the front office decided to do is use the draft capital, select young players, and build them up for the distant future in hopes that once the Curry, Dre, and Clay era concluded, that they would actually have a young star that they could really build off on. Unfortunately, though, here we are in 2025, and none of that has really worked out whatsoever. James Wiseman, who was their top pick, turned out to be one of the biggest busts this side of Kwame Brown. Jordan Poole, albeit not a front office problem, did get a lot of the value punched out of him once Draymond Green and him got into an altercation. This translated into Poole getting traded to the Wizards. In return, the Warriors received Chris Paul. But instead of flipping Chris Paul's contract into a bona fide quality rotational piece, even to a degree of an all-NBA caliber player, they effectively just allowed him to walk in free agency. So there's that. Then you have Moses Moody and B-Pods, who are two quality rotational players, sound off the bench, but never really giving you enough production to solidify them as starters. And finally, the last piece that they're holding on is to Johnathan Kuminga. Now, Kuminga, throughout the first 4 years of his career, he's had a lot of ups and downs, and you can certainly argue that his lows are probably much more attributed to the system that is being played out in Golden State. This is not me knocking the system. The system has rewarded them with a lot of success. So this is not me saying that the system is flawed. It's just acknowledging that the Warriors system isn't for every single player, and Kuminga is certainly a great example of that. However, despite the bad fit, Kuminga has shown a lot of promise in very few spurts starts throughout his first few years, especially in year 2 and 3 when Klay Thompson and Draymond were in and out of lineups either due to suspensions or Klay immediate regression out of nowhere. Also, Kevon Looney not being a reliable option as well really did open up a lot more opportunities for Kuminga within his second and third year. And with those opportunities, Kuminga really did flourish. He put up a lot of box score numbers, points, rebounds, and assists. He looks really solid, but again, nothing too sustainable, especially when Steve Kerr always would reel him back in, lessen his minutes due to some of the intangibles and effort plays that he would not give consistently. Of course, this always is a give and take with player and coach. How exactly do you think I'm going to give you consistent effort, especially on the defensive side of the floor, when you're not giving me consistent minutes? There's nothing really there that you're giving me. But if you are the Warriors, you have built a very long resume of playing off ball, playing hard defensively, and playing within the system that benefits Curry on and off ball. So you kind of got to get with it or get on the bench. It's one or the other. And unfortunately, this has really resulted in Kuminga staying on the bench probably longer than he should have. Now, there also were other concerns when it came to Kuminga and his role and responsibility on the team, so much so where his role effectively was no longer going to be on the team. Throughout this 2-year window, Kuminga's name has been thrown in several trade rumors that consist of Paul George, Kevin Durant, and some of Lauri Markkanen. It's kind of hard between B-Pods and Kuminga who exactly was given up for Lauri Markkanen theoretically, but regardless, Kuminga's name has also been thrown in several trade rumors implying that the Warriors are trying to move on without him, but unfortunately have failed to pull the trigger or just have not been able to seal the deal with an opposing team. Regardless, Kuminga still stays on the roster while his name is being thrown in trade rumors, and also his minutes are going up and down throughout the entire time. And be very mindful while all of this is happening, there's a lot of things that are just falling apart at the feet of the front office for the Warriors as they effectively kind of do nothing. Again, Jordan Poole and the relationship with Draymond soured so much where they had to just move off of him. James Wiseman was immediately viewed as a bust and they moved off of him. A bunch of players were offered to the Warriors in some rumors, but they never pulled the trigger. And even when they tried to, again, things kind of fell apart. And eventually the Warriors became so desperate to give a running mate to Curry that not only did they decided to move off of Klay Thompson so they can free up some more capital, but eventually pulled the trigger on trading Andrew Wiggins to go after Jimmy Butler, who is plus 35 years old and certainly isn't the same player he was before, but so desperate the Warriors were that they had to give him a contract extension that gave him over $55 million for the next 2 seasons. This financial commitment was so steep that here we are again, nearly in August, and the Warriors basically only have like 7 to 9 players on their roster, and they're already clear over $170 million committed to this team. Again, it's basically just Curry, Jimmy, Draymond, Moody, Buddy Hield, B-Pods, TJD, Quentin Post, and again, it's already amounting to over $170 million. Now, of course, with that much money committed to only a handful of players, it practically makes it impossible to add anyone on the roster. It's a huge reason why when Bradley Beal was available after his buyout with the Suns, the only thing that the Warriors could offer him was a vet minimum. It's also a huge reason why that even though there are several rumors around Al Horford signing with the Warriors, those have really become stagnant because Al Horford is trying his hardest to potentially maximize his earnings for what could be the last year of his career, but the Warriors are uncertain on how much they can or cannot give him because of what's going on with Kuminga right now. Now, for those who may not be paying attention very closely, if you go back and look at like the 6-7 names I highlighted earlier about like the 170 payroll they have already, Kuminga is not on that list. Kuminga is not a name that they have committed to this roster. He already served the 4 years on his rookie deal, and he's at a point right now where he's a restricted free agent, and normally in these circumstances, either Kuminga would go out and find an offer from someone and come back and see if the Warriors are going to match it, or the Warriors normally just give Kuminga either the contract he's looking for or something that's close enough that will allow the player to just sign off on the deal anyway. And this happens even when the player in the front office don't even see eye to eye, similar to what's going on with Kuminga and the Warriors, because worst case scenario, you just give him the contract that he wants and just do a sign and trade and send him somewhere else and then go on with the rest of your offseason. But the problem is a couple of things. A, and we talked about this already, the CBA is really just screwing a lot of teams. So even if you have a player like Kuminga who's a restricted free agent and you could just really just walk up to him and give him an offer sheet in hopes that the Warriors don't match it, it's really hard to play the game of what exactly the Warriors are or are not willing to give Kuminga. And then if you're the other team, you don't want to give Kuminga a max contract, because if you make a mistake and he turns out to not to be anywhere near close to being that player, then you're certainly screwed. Like you're done. You're done. Dunzo. So now the rest of the league doesn't want to give Kuminga the offer sheet that would normally happen in the NBA. I've seen this several different times where you have another franchise that really and truly probably don't want the player, but just throws out a max offer just so the Warriors would have to match it anyway to kind of put them in this financial loophole where they are effectively stuck with whatever player that they end up signing. Like that happens a lot of times. Not this time. No one wants to play chicken with a max contract from a player that they don't know will be able to live up to said expectations. And that's the type of money, or at least around the type of money that Kuminga is looking for due to the type of deal that Jalen Johnson got from the Atlanta Hawks. So Kuminga is looking at the landscape, seeing and believing that he can fulfill the same role and is the same talent that someone like a Jalen Johnson is. And so that's how he's gauging his skill and his ability. But unfortunately for the Warriors, they know that if they give him that type of deal, they are effectively hard cap, and not just hard cap, they are hard cap at the second apron. It would make practically no sense whatsoever for the Warriors, with this incomplete of a roster, not having any more flexibility for the foreseeable future, especially because beyond these next 2 years, you have no idea what's going to happen on this roster anyway. You don't know what's going to happen with Curry, Jimmy, or Draymond. All three of them are only under deals for 2 more years. And beyond that, it's literally just Moses Moody and Buddy Hield. They're giving themselves as much cap flexibility as possible for when the inevitable happens that they need to blow things up, that they don't have a bad contract under their cap, that they have to eventually figure out what they have to do with it. And for me, what's even more frustrating is knowing that all of this could have been avoided, but the Warriors time in and time out again put themselves in a very bad situation. This is an organization that decided to draft talent instead of trading it in hopes that it will turn out to be a player that they can call the face of their franchise. But then when given the opportunity to build up said players, they weren't giving any consistent minutes to Kuminga. They weren't giving any consistent responsibilities to a player that had the most potential out of every young player that they drafted. And if that's how you're going to roll, if that's what you believe is best for your organization, because that's fine. I mean, Kuminga certainly isn't the best player that could have been selected at that point in the draft. You still had Franz Wagner that was available and a couple of other names as well. So understandably so, you made a mistake. But instead of righting the wrong, the Warriors decided to continue to ride out on this ship that is Kuminga, but still not give him the opportunity to up his trade value. So you effectively tanked his trade value while also denying any trade offers that were out there that could have maximized the potential that he had shown at that point, just for you to now get to this point in his career where you don't want to give him the contract that he's looking for. And now you're kind of just stuck until both parties can come to a conclusion on what exactly they want to do with one another. But now you're also in a new CBA where no one really wants to make the mistake by giving Kuminga the contract that he's probably looking for, or certainly not something that is near max. Like, the Warriors are in by far one of the worst predicaments I've ever seen. And again, take into consideration that this is an organization that used to be ahead of the curve, an organization that had all the answers, an organization that understood space and pace better than anyone else, a front office that dared to challenge the traditional ideology of double big lineups and rolled out Draymond Green, a head coach that took Curry off the ball despite being a point guard, maximize it so much so that even beyond the Kevin Durant era, even beyond Klay Thompson's prime, they were still able to ring off another championship in 2022. But ever since then, it has been bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. Next year, not the year coming up, not 25-26, 26-27, the Warriors already have $177 million committed. And that team is only comprised of Curry, Jimmy, Draymond, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, B. Pods, and TJD. 7 players in the 26-27 season makes up $177 million. I just don't understand how a team can get to this point with as many assets that they had 4 to 5 years ago. And to make it worse, the big plan that seems to be reoccurring over the past 2 to 3 years is this promise that the Warriors are going to somehow stumble across getting Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis? Giannis is the big plan? Be very mindful. What are you trading for? Like, are you going to get off of both Jimmy and Draymond to go get Giannis? Like, how does that even occur when you don't have any young players in the process of doing so? How is that even going to occur when Giannis is actively recruiting more players to play with him in Milwaukee and Miles Turner? How is that even going to occur when you don't even have Kuminga, the piece that you were trying to move in the first place for someone like Giannis? You don't even have him committed to a contract yet. You don't even know what the long-term idea of Kuminga is on this team or not on this team and what you can receive in return for him. Even when he showed a lot of potential, when Draymond was out, when Klay Thompson was regulated to the bench alongside Kevon Looney, he showed potential. Kuminga has like stretches where he's giving you 18 to 20 points, really good consistent shooting, giving you a little bit more scoring. Like why would you not then continue to build on that, even if it came at the detriment of what you're trying to do on a year-to-year basis, because you know at some point he is going to be the key. It wasn't going to be Wiseman. Poole got punched off the team. B-Pod certainly isn't it. Kuminga is the key. And yet you've sat there and wasted by far your best asset while also completely swinging and missing on all the other ones. Personally speaking, I'm very intrigued by this storyline because in any normal situation in previous CBAs, Kuminga would still be under contract. They would have given him an offer right now, more than likely close to what he wanted, and eventually just traded him down the line. But they're in this weird situation where they have to be very careful with the type of contract that they give Kuminga, because if he gets too high of a number, obviously he's not going to be traded because no one in the league really wants him. But then it also forces you to lose even more flexibility to a team that's already near the second tax apron right now with only like 9 players on the books. But then if you decide to just let him go in free agency or just give him an offer sheet, you then turn him into an unrestricted free agent, and effectively he could just walk in free agency, and that is certainly going to happen after how you've treated him for the better part of the last 2 to 3 years with the inconsistent role, responsibility, starting lineup positioning. Like everything has been up and down for Kuminga. And I personally believe that Kuminga might not be the best fit for this team and how this offense functions, but he is certainly much better than the Warriors have made him out to be with the inconsistencies. He certainly has a lot of upside, but unfortunately that just has not been seen when it comes to the Warriors, despite the fact that he was supposed to be the player. He's supposed to be the guy that you can deem as the face of your franchise beyond Curry. Regardless of how crazy that may sound, that was literally the entire plan, and yet here we are now, and it's all falling apart. But hey, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I personally believe in any normal circumstances, Curry would have already demanded a trade, but because he's in love with this franchise, he's going to stay. And because there's not that much like rumors and drama surrounding him in the front office, people don't really talk about this and he doesn't press anything. But like in any normal circumstances, a 37-year-old on a team like this, it just doesn't make any sense. And I'm actually very disappointed that there's not more people talking about how they pissed away the Johnathan Kuminga asset and then decided to just wait to where we are right now and having a standoff with Kuminga and not being able to do anything outside of offer a vet minimum to Bradley Beal and Al Horford in the last year of his career. Like, bro, what are we doing right now?